Hey everybody, I'm Joe. I manage the MGCO3 climbing YouTube channel. My wife and I just had a kid a few weeks ago, so unfortunately I won't be able to get out to the carriage road much this fall season. All my friends are going out on the weekends, putting in work on their projects. So while I'm sitting at home with the kid, I figured I might make a video for you guys sharing some information about 10 of the best relatively unknown boulders, in my opinion, on the carriage road. When you look at the guidebook app, they're pretty stingy with the stars as far as like rating the quality of problems. So it can be difficult knowing which problems are sort of worth your time when you head up to the carriage road each weekend. Obviously, there are the well-known classics like Andrew's Boulder, Black Boulder, Boulder of the Gods, New Pair of Glasses, etc., right? Those problems that everybody tries to send, everybody uploads videos, but clearly there's just hundreds of problems up at the Gunks, and there have to be some problems that are going to be sort of the next generation of classics, right? That just find their way up into the stratosphere along with those sort of super famous climbs. But really, the only way that you can know which ones are great or not, I think, is to sort of spend the time going around to all of these 1-star problems, 0-star problems, whatever, and giving them a shot and really just sort of finding out what's what. I've been going up to the carriage road for about 10 years, so I've got some of that experience. And, without further ado, let's go take a look at the list itself. So I'm calling these future classics because I think that if they're given a bit of attention, people are going to love them, they're going to climb them, they're going to take videos, they're going to share them online, and more people are going to want to do them. And hopefully, eventually, they'll find their way, as I said, sort of up there with some of those greats. So over in the left, we're going to have 5 problems that have been in the guidebook for a while, have existed up there for quite a bit. And then on the side to the right here, we're going to have 5 problems that are relatively new. So without further ado, again, let's just go ahead and jump into Skipski V4 here. So this problem is actually down in the lower parking lot area. Now, I guess I should say before I jump into the first one that the way that I'm considering these problems relatively unknown is sort of twofold. First, there's just no videos of these problems online except on my YouTube channel. There's a few that do have another video, but I think for the most part they're sort of buried in compilation videos and might have weird beta or something like that. So for the most part, these problems just don't really exist on the internet yet. And so taking the time to sort of put out this video, giving everybody a heads up, I felt could be very useful, very helpful for people. So with that said, let's take a quick look at Skipski. As I was saying, this one's down in the lower parking lot area, and so that's kind of the only reason I can think of for why this one's been so overlooked. This is up a little hill as you're approaching the bottom of the Stairmaster, like before you get to the guy in the little cabin before the Stairmaster. It's a big standalone boulder, and right in the middle of it is this pretty cool little arete dihedral action. Pretty nice crimpy start holds. You got a cool heel hook, and then some delicate footwork at the beginning with a really cool left-hand move to this sloper pinch thing. Once you adjust your feet carefully, you've got the crux move, which is kind of a lunge up to a high crimp. It's just a really, really nice move. And then once you grab that crimp, you're pretty good to go. One more crimp, and then you're up to the top. The top is really flat. You get to do this super classic get out of the pool top out. So that's Skipski in a nutshell. The guide actually give this one 3 stars, which is kind of rare for the guidebook because there's just not so many 3-star problems, much less, I guess, 4-star problems. And yeah, Skipski definitely deserves the stars, and it deserves a bit more attention. So if you like sort of vertical, crimpy climbs, give this one a go. I think you'll like it a lot. Next up, we're going to look at Gill V2. This one's actually no longer down in the parking lot. It's up on the carriage road. Wait, I didn't type in Gill. Now, you can see there's no other videos of this one online, but it's super cool. you guys probably recognize this little roof here. This is where Gill Pinch is. And the story goes that Gill Pinch was apparently not done by John Gill. But there was one on this rock that was done by John Gill. And instead of starting over on the left, it starts over on the right, still starting with your hands in this cool seam underneath this little mini roof. And you just work your hands out on great holds and figure out how to get your body up onto the slab. You get up to the crack and then traverse out to the right. Now, I think the guidebook gives this 1 star, but for me, it's got a flat landing. It's right on the carriage road, easy to access. Obvious start holds, great holds and movement throughout the problem. And it's got the provenance of having been put up by a bouldering legend, John Gill. So I think it should get way more than 1 star. Movement is great, super fun problem. Yeah, it ticks all the boxes. And so if you haven't given this one a shot, I mean, it's got to be one of the best V2s in the entire area. So hopefully this will get more attention, get a bit more status like it deserves. Next up, we're going to go over to the Susie A boulder. And we're actually going to look at Arete V4. We're going to look at the Arete on the Susie A boulder. And once again, you can see there's no other videos online for the Susie A Arete. There is one buried in a compilation, but the beta was a little weird. The person pretty much stayed on the face, but just left of where Susie A is. For those of you who don't know, Susie A is like a 4-star V1 that climbs sort of straight up the middle of this really lovely face. The Arete just goes up this left sort of corner. It's got an extremely just kind of perfectly flat landing. You can stack as many pads as you want to be super safe because it is pretty tall. I did my best to find beta that kept my hips really close to the Arete the whole way with at least one hand on the Arete or around the Arete. And yeah, there's great holds throughout. This boulder has a lot of history. These problems were put up by some of the if I'm not mistaken, some of the early strong trad climbers who were sort of experimenting, just kind of warming up with boulders. There was a photo in an old magazine article I saw of one of those guys on the start of Susie A wearing, I think it was like big like hiking boots. So those guys didn't mess around. So if we take a quick look at some of the movement on this Arete, you start sort of hugged into the bottom there. And yeah, it's pretty crimpy throughout. One of the coolest things about this is you're kind of constantly over air. So it feels really exposed. And at this point, my head is already like 10 feet off the ground. So it just feels really committing. And for a V4 to be on such clean rock with a flat landing, even the dog is watching me. That's pretty funny. It's just a really beautiful problem. So really high marks from me. I personally have never seen anybody working on this in all the years I've been going to the carriage road. And again, really no videos exist of the proper sort of Arete line. So if it looks good to you, give it a shot. Again, you won't be disappointed. Really great problem. The next one up, Poetry in Motion, is actually on the same boulder. It just climbs from the same starting position as the Arete climb, but just goes all the way right, traversing till you get to this shelf. And then if you want to, you could do Susie B, which is an R-rated, which means sort of dangerous, an R-rated V1 that has jugs the whole way, but it's kind of reachy and obviously kind of tall and over a bunch of boulders. So, you could choose to end at the shelf on the V6 Traverse, or if you like topping things out, there's definitely a pretty straightforward path up to the top. So let's go ahead and type in Poetry in Motion V6 Gunks. I was up here with my friend Alexei when we were working on this one, so I have a video of Alexei sending it and a video of myself. Now, this problem was actually first sent by Lynn Hill, the great Lynn Hill. And a couple of 100 feet down the carriage road is the famous Lynn Hill Traverse. That one goes at V8 according to the guidebook, but in the sort of decades that it's existed as a boulder problem, people have found different betas, and for me personally, using pretty reachy beta on that problem, it felt pretty close to V6 rather than V8. So grade-wise, Poetry in Motion and the proper sort of Lynn Hill traverse, both again sort of FA'd by Lynn Hill, are very, very similar in grade or difficulty, and both of them have really beautiful movement. I actually prefer Poetry in Motion a little bit more. The holds are thinner, a little bit more technical movement. There's not as many options for holds as there are on the Lynn Hill Traverse. And people go high on Lynn Hill, they go low, they do tall beta, they do short beta. Really not so many options on this one. There's just a few holds, you have to use them. You can choose your sequence pretty carefully, and there's certainly going to be some variety in which foot or hand you place first or second or third. But there's one line you have to take, not as confusing as or open-ended as Lynn Hill. And yeah, as I said, it does have a top out if you want to take it. It just, for me, it ticks all the boxes. It's got a pretty flat landing. I think this one has 2 stars in the guidebook, might only have 1. In my view, it's just a mega classic. And again, it's on this wonderful boulder. Lots of history on this boulder. Located pretty close to the front of the carriage road, just like a 3-minute walk from new pair of glasses. This is the crux foothold here. It's extremely thin and slopey, and once you've sort of gotten through that, you should be generally good to go to the end. So yeah, this is Poetry in Motion. Very delicate movement on thin crimps and little tiny smeary slopey footholds. Just a gigantic sloper jug to finish. It's just an excellent, excellent problem, and I can't recommend it highly enough. Last on this list on the left is the Romano Arete V5. So there are 2 videos. I was actually sort of reminded of this climb when I saw James Wen's video a few months ago go up. And yeah, so I took a trip up by myself. This was, I think, yeah, it was in June. This is just down the carriage road a little bit from that Susie A boulder. Lynn Hill Traverse is right over here where these people are. And you can see Black Boulder beyond in the distance. In all my years climbing up in the Gunks, I've never seen anybody working on this even once. Lots of people on this rock have tried, I think it's Pat's Pinch. There's like the Depancer is around here. Just a bunch of fun traverses, and again, Black Boulder. I guess enough stuff that's sort of sucking everybody's attention away from the Romano Arete, but it also has some cool provenance put up by one of the OGs of the carriage road, Rich Romano. Got some history in the guidebook if you want to check that out. But let's go ahead and look at the climb a little bit. Starts on extremely pebbly rock, reaches up to a really beautiful pebbly pinch. You can choose, which pebbles you use as footholds. Climb up the arete a little bit. I was trying to stay as close as I could to the arete. A little cross and then a big bump to a hidden crimp beyond. And at this point, you just sort of have to figure out how to get a high foot and then sort of convert the position up onto the slab. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this particular boulder or never looked up over here, it's got to be 40 or 50 feet tall. So once you rock over onto the slab, even though it's very safe with a bunch of cracks you can sort of twist your feet into, it gets pretty scary. So, test your composure and, yeah, test your arete climbing skills down on the bottom. So another one with history, another one with great movement, great holds, wonderful flat landing. It just doesn't see enough traffic. So yeah, 5 problems there on the left that have been in the guidebook for a while, but for one reason or another, despite pretty clean landings, despite great movement, despite the provenance of having been FA'd by Gunks legends, just don't get enough attention. So please, next time you're up and maybe after you work on your project for a while, go give True Gill a try. Or if you're really into traverses, try out Poetry in Motion. So with those 5 out of the way, let's go over to this right column, new future classics. So for the most part, these problems, I found myself and cleaned them up and either FA'd myself or a friend of mine did the FA. First up is Mad Ghetto Swag V4. And before I actually go into that video, I want to show you how to find this one. So this, let's see, green dihedral V2 Gunks. So this rock should hopefully look familiar to you guys. If you come up on the Stairmaster and look left, this is sort of the first beautiful boulder you'll see as you head down the road towards Black Boulder, Lynn Hill Traverse, and that section we were just looking at with the Romano Arete. When you make that left off of the top of the Stairmaster, if you consider, you know, this side of the carriage road with the boulder to be uphill, and to the left to be downhill, about halfway before you get to this green dihedral boulder, on the left downhill side, you'll find this boulder that I'm going to show you guys next. It's the only one on the list that's not in the guidebook yet. It's called Mad Ghetto Swag V4. A name that I wouldn't have come to myself, but I've come to love it. It's just kind of a silly, fun name. I found the boulder, cleaned it up, and my friend Jack did the FA. This was 8 years ago. And yeah, it's a little bit frustrating that it's not in the guidebook at this point. All the other ones, as I said, on the right side, are in the guidebook at this point, after I communicated with the guidebook authors and let them know that, you know, I found these problems. So, gorgeous rock. Again, this is like halfway between the Stairmaster and green dihedral. So this shelf that Jack is starting with his hands on had just a ton of like thick dirt and loose rocks all over it, so like had never been touched. So I had to clean off all that rock, sort of scoop out all the dirt with my hands, clean it up, chalk it off, chalk it down, and yeah, it climbs really, really nicely. The only downside to this boulder is the landing is a little bit bumpy. You can see there's all these kind of loose boulders around. To get to the boulder, you sort of exit down the hill a little bit, and then there is a clear path. You just have to take your time. It's not too bad. I actually went this spring and I cleared the path again. If you leave it alone for a year or two, it gets kind of overgrown with vines and leaves and stuff. So if you go now, since it was clean just in spring, you should be able to see a path. You can see the big top. It's sort of flattish, like a big flat top of the boulder, a nice path that you can climb down. So the movement here, you start matched on a huge shelf with a heel hook, and the first move out is to this excellent, cool pinch, kind of a unique feature in the Gunks. Haven't really seen that before. You're going to get up onto the face here, and then eventually establish this crack that runs up towards the top of the boulder. The top out's not too tricky. You could either sort of move your hips sort of straight up the face and then put a high foot and exit, or you can just sort of continue and wrap around this arete up here and sort of straddle the left side of the boulder. Jack makes pretty quick work of the top out, but another friend of mine who climbs like V9, we have another video of this problem, Mad Ghetto Swag, online. The sun was setting, it was kind of dark, and he kind of had an epic on the top out, so it's definitely not a gimme. It's really fun boulder, really unique holds, cool movement, and, you know, it just deserves a little more attention. So that's Mad Ghetto Swag at number 6 on the list of Gunks Future Classics. Next one is Derailed V8. Grade-wise, this is the hardest one on the list. And it's on a really famous boulder, like you know, the Susie A boulder, or the Lynn Hill boulder, or any of these like really well-known boulders. This is the Marrakesh Express boulder, otherwise known nowadays as the Murray boulder. So Derailed is just a link up of the traverse into the dyno. I've seen this once online in a compilation video by Austin Hoyt. He graded this particular link up as a V8. The traverse goes at V6, and according to the guidebook right now, the dyno goes at V7. It's just kind of a power, endurance, and explosiveness kind of test piece. The first few moves of this problem, if you haven't tried it, you need a lot of body tension. It's a big cross here, delicate footwork. People have lots of different betas for this one. This is kind of a tall person beta with that heel hook. Yeah, and then eventually along this crimp rail, you're going to establish a particularly good spot on the rail, find a decent foothold, and just really pull hard, jump high. Excellent hold at the top of the dyno, so you're definitely not going to slip off if you hit it. There's a really nice right hand to grab onto after that, and there's a little mound that you can throw your heel up and over. Makes rocking over feel pretty safe and secure. So for me, this is kind of a dream line. I love traverses, I love dynos, and it's on classic rock with a beautiful landing. If you're a fan of that kind of climbing, really definitely give this one a shot. let's go ahead and look at Death Star V5, one of my favorites. So this one actually has kind of a cool story too. This is another one where the only videos that exist online of the problem are on our YouTube channel, MGCO3 Climbing. So actually, you know, my friend Jack here, I guess he did it again and put up a video on his own channel. But you can see Jack had a video from 8 years ago too. So the story behind this boulder is it's actually just to the right of the boxcar boulder and up the hill just a little bit, like maybe 15 feet or 20 feet up the hill. You can easily see it from the carriage road when you're climbing at the boxcar boulder. And back when I was trying this problem, there were only a few problems on this big rock. There was, over on the left, there was Yo-Yo Ma. A little further left is a V9, I think, called Fly Like an Ego. And on the right here was a V1 called Herman. But then the rest of this entire face, basically to the right of this tree and left of the arete, was covered with super dense lichen, like you can see here in the foreground, and up at this sort of boulder sitting at the very top, above where I am right now. Just super dense, thick lichen all over the face of this massive rock. And I guess nobody really felt like cleaning off the lichen just because this style of climbing, kind of slabby, vertical climbing, it just doesn't seem to be in favor for the most part. Up in the Gunks, people seem to love overhanging, roofed style problems. But for me, I really love technical vertical problems. So I saw this rock, saw that it was dirty, spent a bunch of trips cleaning off all the lichen. I actually had to shovel, I don't know, maybe like 30 square feet of dirt, like 3 inches thick, to make a landing and exit off of the top of the boulder. So put a lot of work into this one and was rewarded with a few really great problems. Up the middle, there's a couple of cool V2s. And this one over here on the arete is kind of the prize of this boulder, I think. It's called Death Star. I did the first ascent, looks like in 2014. I call it a V5. The guidebook calls it a V4, but I have some really strong friends who haven't been able to put this one together, so I'm going to stick with the V5 for now. Starts on sort of beautiful crimp seam, beautiful big foot rail. You just pick some pebbles to get up on the boulder, and then the defining hold is really this little tiny crimp. It's like a little credit card razor up there. And once you grab that, you need to be very careful, pick out, you know, another foot, and then the final left, sort of open up your hips, get that high foot. And then I used to think you were going to need this high sloper patch to sort of help get up to the top, but you can see I'm pretty high here, and I think most people, even climbers not as tall as I am, could probably just stand up straight to the top from that point. And then, yeah, you just throw up a heel, kind of scum your way up around this corner, and exit around this licheny boulder. Kind of rare climbing in the Gunks, slabby, technical, not so overhanging, not roofy. It's not the only problem like this. There are others, but just doesn't seem like there are as many of these style climbs as some other styles. So if it looks good to you, give it a shot. It won't disappoint. Really, really great climb. My baby is making some noise. I'm gonna try to see if I can rock her a little bit and see if I can quiet her down a little. Hang on just a second. All right, sorry about that. So Death Star, really cool, nice climbing. Let's go ahead to the next one, which is called Genital Geometry. This is another boulder that I found and cleaned, and then a friend of mine got the first ascent. It's kind of cool. Gus Lissandro, an old friend from Brooklyn Boulders back from when the gym had just opened, has a video of this one, so that's pretty great, but it's the only other one apart from the first ascent video. It's my friend Christian. It's quite a nice looking boulder. It's almost completely white, just down the hill from the boxcar boulder. Pretty easy to find. It starts on 2 little crimps, got a thin little foot, and it's got a powerful shouldery move, Gaston out to the right. If you can hold on to that, you switch feet and do this sort of powerful cross, and that's really pretty much the whole boulder. He paused on what looked like a little pinch, but it doesn't really contribute much. And from here, just kind of juggy, top out, he goes up and out near this little tree. I I think you could probably kind of go straight up. Looks like there's probably jugs on the top here. You could throw up a leg to the left if you want to avoid this little tree. But pretty neat, crimpy, vertical climbing. And there's probably more to do on this rock, honestly, if you're looking to try to do some FAs. This was just the line that jumped out to me, the sort of most clearly. And it's fun stuff. Should be getting more attention than it does. Now, the very last one on the list is Daily Commute V6. And this is going to be further down past the boxcar area, getting pretty close to where 8 Ball is. It's in the Hot Springs Hotel area. This boulder is just up from the carriage road, up the hill, again, maybe like 30 feet or so, similar to where the Death Star, or how the Death Star boulder is situated. Just, you need to walk up the hill just a little bit. And prior to this past spring, in the guidebook, there was only one line on this entire boulder. It was up the left arete, and it's a V8 called Daily Snail Phenomenon. It's pretty puzzly, hard to figure out how to put these holds together on Daily Snail Phenomenon. It's still a project for me, but it's a pretty neat line. I've done the top, and that part's pretty cool. But the rest of the boulder, just like the Death Star boulder, was completely covered in lichen. I had to come up on numerous trips and clean off all these faces. There was dirt on these slopey shelves. There was a dangerous spiky rock underneath Daily Snail Phenomenon. I dug that up and sort of moved it aside so that nobody would hurt themselves. And you can see the ground is nicely tamped down now. I cleaned up tons of dead leaves. And at this point, it's just a really lovely boulder to climb at. My hope was, when I first saw this one, that it would be sort of like the boxcar boulder, in the sense that it's got a bunch of easy to moderate climbs and then one or two kind of harder climbs. So, you could go to the boxcar boulder with a group of friends, and maybe the stronger ones are climbing on the boxcar Arete, which is a V8, and everybody else is working on boxcar Traverse, which is a V4, or maybe some of like the V1s, V2s, V3s that sort of pop up the face of the boxcar boulder. So after I cleaned this one up, I found a handful of lines. They're actually all in the guidebook now. So if you want to search for the Daily Commute, you'll see all of the other problems in the same section in the guidebook. So Daily Commute is just a traverse. It starts to the left of this vertical seam, all the way over to the left on the boulder, and it traverses through some really, really cool terrain on the boulder. It's got some sloping shelves, really thin footwork at the beginning, apart from that sort of big heel up on the top. The lower foot, not using very much. Here, it's just extremely sharp, pebbly crimps, or, well, pebbly slopers, I guess. And that move there where you swing across that gap is just so much fun. There's a big jug slot on this next shelf over here that you have to sort of figure out beta to get to. So you saw how I did it, just kind of got a foot over. Moving through another slopey ledge, and then sort of keep working your way around. There's a really nice shelf coming up here that you can either pinch or use as a sloper. Some decent footholds, a nice slopey shelf up towards the top. And if I pause here for a sec, you can see sort of the overhanging nature of the climb. It's obviously not like a roof or anything, but these horizontals running along the right side of the face are perpendicular to kind of the overhang of this face, right? So I don't know exactly what that is. It might be 10 degrees or so. So that's kind of what the overhang feels like when you're on this face. So even though most of it looks pretty vertical, for a good portion of it, you kind of feel like the boulder's trying to throw you off like it would on any overhanging climb. And then going around the corner here, this arete, because of this overhang, again, the boulder sort of feels like it's trying to tumble you off, and you really have to sort of lunge into the next hold, which is this really nice Gaston over here. It might look pretty straightforward to top out either here or at the next hold, and you surely can. There's a V4 that just goes straight up this arete and mantles out. But the nature of this long traverse is to go all the way around using all the holds that exist on the face, and then top out towards the end of the climb. Because of this, a lot of traverses can actually be called somewhat contrived, I guess. Even like Poetry in Motion or the Lynn Hill Traverse, all of those have potential exits, you know, before the actual finish. But if you want to sort of eke out as much climbing as you can on one boulder, these kinds of long link-up traverses are really where it's at. So it was so much fun finding that problem and cleaning it up and sending it, and I can't recommend it highly enough. So that's going to end the right side of my list of top 10 Gunks future classics. It's quite a variety of styles in the list of 10, so hopefully there's something that appeals to everybody in here. So yeah, you know, the weather's beautiful. Get out there and crush some boulders. If you've got any questions about anything, you know, please just leave me a comment. I'm happy to give directions to any of these climbs, or if you need some beta or just want to talk about bouldering at the Gunks, leave me that comment down below. And yeah, I'll see you guys out there. Adios.